Welcome back to Next Level Rides. Today we're fixing a radiator for Eric. Alright, so stay tuned. A little bit of regular maintenance today. Of course, this is not really regular maintenance. It's wait till it's broken and Tony fixes it. Right, Eric? Yeah, right. Okay, stay tuned. I can already smell the coolant burning. This is gonna be a all right, step 1, stare at it. Step 2, question why you decided to do this. First, we start by removing the bolts that hold the radiator right up top for the brackets, and then we move on to removing the coolant reservoir itself. Look at all this coolant. Is that blue Kool-Aid? It smells very old. I don't know if you're going to be able to see in here. All that mud and garbage. I don't know what the hell that's about. So we're going to wash it out. That is not what you want to see, especially on a Subaru. So we'll clean it out. Keep an eye on it. The oil isn't being mixed with coolant, and the head gaskets were already done on this thing. So I really don't foresee that being any imminent failure from the head gasket or head gaskets. So we'll just keep an eye on it. Wouldn't be the first time I've seen a bunch of shit, but who knows, there could be sediment or something just in the radiator. All right, so after taking the overflow off and loosening the 212s on here, we're going to pop them off of the top of the rad. So you see that they have this little rubber here, and these just wedge right on top. So we're gonna put them to the side, give them a little clean. So this one being an automatic, I'm pretty sure the transmission lines run into the radiator as a cooler. So let's see what else I need to disconnect. All right, try wiggling the hoses off. Let's see if I can reach this bottom one. Yeah, there's quite a bit of corrosion and shit. All right, let's see if I can break the seal. Yeah, that's old. All right, ladies and gents, so this is what we're looking at. So there's the little twist valve right there that we have to twist. And fortunately, there's a hose that was attached to it. So rather than it pissing all over the header, it's gonna piss into the bucket. Oh, please don't be seized. Is it seized? Kind of. Is it seized? Or is it empty? Oh, it's going on my fucking arm. I knew it. 2 hours later. All right, so we're gonna wipe all the coolant. It's somehow managed to get everywhere on this rad hose. Because we're gonna change both radiator hoses. You can tell these haven't moved in a while, so they're actually stuck on the hose. So be careful if you're trying to poke at them. Use a screwdriver or something. Don't do what I did and poke with your pinky, because if your pliers end up snapping off, that'll pinch you pretty good. So if you're changing these hoses, you can cut a slit down the side of them to pry them off, and then just clean the ends off. Yeah, that's it. Just fight with it for 1.5 years. Now, this is probably gonna have a little bit of coolant in it. Oh! That was a lot more than I expected. All right, is there any in the block? Oh my God, yep. The coolant was timed to be changed anyways. You can kind of see it's a little bit kind of gray, shitty color. Wiggle the hose off. All right, we're gonna let that leak for a bit. How the hell do you open one of these? It's kind of weird. Oh, made in China, great. There. Okay, so far so good. All right, so these are the 2 ports that have the hoses here. So we just need to make sure these ports are the same on the one that comes out. But on this Subaru, it has a heat shield that actually covers these. This is going to be a huge pain in the ass because the hoses are pointed downward. It looks like they give you 90-degree barbs as well. Okay. From underneath, we're going to loosen the bolts and the lines that go to the oil cooler and separate it from the radiator itself so that we can remove it. All right, some people may remember or recognize this. For a hose clamp, clicks down, and then you can have 2 free hands. So I'm going to use this on the cooler lines, and hopefully I don't get ATF in my eye. This tool was really nice to use because the hose clamp was actually up and behind the oil cooler lines, so it made it easier to remove. So after you've disconnected the oil cooler lines along with the 2 hoses for the coolant routing, you'll be able to lift the radiator up and out of the engine bay. So we need to remove the rad fan and the shroud off of the old busted radiator to put on the new one. All right. Okay, we need 2 90s. 3 bolts. All right, so I didn't show on camera how I was screwing with the fittings, but being that this is a 2007, wiggle this down and you can pull all you want. That's not going to come off. So what I use is either a pick or a flathead. So poke it towards the metal and wiggle it. And all you're doing is you're just wiggling it around to break that seal and come back the other way. Wiggle it. And then you should be able to either pull it off or you just grab the pliers. Oh, the seal's broken on it, so let's nudge it off. So these have these big barbs and it usually ends up forming to that. So let's just poke it a little bit. You can see it's coming slowly. It's just heat treated to the barb. There. That's why it pissed everywhere. See? You can wedge it on and it just pops right off. I don't plan on doing this again, so we're not going to put another hose on it. This one's toast, so it goes out in the junk pile. So this one was for the one side of the cooler. It ends up going in there. And then bolts to the radiator. So picture radiator here. That one goes there. This one goes on the opposite side, so we're just going to clean them a little bit. So when I go to put them in, they're not pre-lubricated and full of oil and garbage. Of course, afterwards, we'll take this to the car wash and spray it down with degreaser and clean it really nice. So we ended up having to replace the 2 fittings for 2 brass 90-degree fittings so that the factory cooler lines would work. After you get this all sorted, put the heat shield back on, and then afterwards the rad fan. Yeah, you can see how the hoses kind of lay one in front of the other. So I think it's pretty obvious which one goes where. Okay, so those lay in there. So don't go crazy with these. Just get them started, you'll feel a resistance. Then snug them up. So while we reinstall the radiator, we go to put the coolant lines back on. Now, when I went to go put these on, it was a little bit too long, so you needed to get a utility knife and trim it down so that it would fit properly. So when you go to put the lower radiator hose on, just be sure that there are no kinks. This one ended up having a sharp 90, so without trimming it, it would have kinked and caused an issue. Now back up top, we're going to replace the 2 radiator mounts right on the front that hold the radiator in place and keep it from wiggling and damaging the rad fan. Afterwards, we're going to reinstall the coolant reservoir, and after the coolant reservoir, we're going to replace the coolant line that goes to the radiator for the overflow. So with all the clamps, these are the worst ones to work with. They could be like a bomb that's going to be set off. So I'll show you how to deal with them. See, these are tricky and you never f***ing trust these. I don't know if it's going to show up on the camera. See how it has the little tab? Okay, let me try and do it. Like that. So it's leading you into a false sense of security that you can now move it around. But you're in danger. You're always in danger. Because I swear you bump it the wrong way, it's going to come off. So let's not detonate the bomb. Whew.
So after getting the upper rad hose on, we move to refilling the coolant system.
All right, now we're gonna mix some good old coolant. So because we live in good old Canada and he parks his vehicle outside, we're gonna mix it 50-50. So hopefully I don't spill this. For the most part, coolant is coolant. A lot of the time it's just dye. I remember I had a friend way back when that used to work at, I believe it was a Napa Auto Pro or whatever it was called. And they used to have just regular glycol, and they would literally just put some dye in it and you're good to go. Now there are certain ones that may have some other additives. BMW has some additives. Subaru now has some additives, but this is an older one, so it's really not gonna matter. So I'll mix it 50 parts, or 1-to-1 with distilled water. And then I'll show you how we can test it really quick, just to make sure that it's gonna be the appropriate concentration. Okay, make sure it's mixed really good. So what you do is you end up squeezing this as much as you can, the little bulb. And if you wanna come up here, so slowly, so that it fills. So far, for some reason, mixing it close to 50-50, it's good to 23 degrees. So that's not good enough. Minus 45. Well, minus 43. There, minus 45. Like, minus 45 is where it starts to gel. I've unfortunately ran vehicles where the coolant is good to minus 20, and it's doing fine. So essentially, why it's really good to use these is you can fill it, and then as it burps, the air comes out and then the coolant level goes down. So you don't need to put the cap on and keep screwing it around. So as soon as the level goes past here, then it ends up just burping essentially, like I just did. So sometimes when you end up pouring it too quick, it starts to spill all over. So this is kind of handy. So now you burp the hoses. All right, champ. Start the car. Hottest heat, slowest speed. So not off, 1 tick. Hottest heat because you want the coolant to go through the heater core. Slowest speed so that the engine actually warms up. Yep.
So with most older vehicles that don't bleed themselves, it's going to be a lot of waiting until it gets up to temp. So be patient, it'll eventually get there and the thermostat will open.
And we're done. So it's more of a pain in the ass than anything. Sometimes you need to trim the hoses and you get coolant in your eye and springs explode places and whiz past your head, but whatever. That's all for today. See you next week. Feel free to like and subscribe. Take care.